So I played AC Rogue in 2021, and I did it, guys! I played all the Assassin's Creed games. It only took me 14 years and like 1,000 hours of blood, sweat, and gamer tears, but we did it, baby! Okay, onto the review. Rogue is one of those games I hesitate to call underrated because of how many people say it's underrated. If 10 people say something's underrated, then it's no longer underrated. I mean, for sure it has to be the least sold main game in this series because it came out on the same day as Unity, but also because it's kind of a spin-off too. It's smaller than the other games and the story lasts about as long as the time between when you realize you're going to sneeze to when you actually do sneeze. Seriously, this story took me like 7 hours. Luckily, it wasn't fully priced because, you know, that wouldn't make sense, right? It's a smaller side game. It reuses a lot from Black Flag. It's a prequel sequel that came out on the same day as the new game that looks way better, so surely it didn't. Oh my god, it was fully priced? That's why people didn't buy this. To be fair, Unity was next-gen only, and not everyone was going out to buy Xbox 720s and PlayStation 3 Pluses, so it made sense to put something on last gen. But yeah, maybe this should have been 40 bucks. Anyways, what did people think about Rogue back then? It wasn't super well received. I mean, both critic and user reviews landed around a 7 out of 10, which yeah, is decent. But people were calling it out for being a reskinned Black Flag and for being overpriced and for coming out on the same day as Unity, which yeah, all of those things are legit criticisms to have. But this is a review in 2021. I had never played this game before, so I went in with fresh eyes and clear intentions. And let me tell you, AC Rogue, it's a pretty good time. This video is sponsored by the Ridge Wallet. I've been using my aluminum RFID wallet for a couple weeks now, and for real, I just love it. This is what I used to use. I mean, look at the difference. It's insane. I'm not stuffing my wallet into my pockets anymore, and it's even easier to grab cards with the Ridge Wallet. I keep the two I use the most in the front and the back. There's no gimmicks, no magic tricks. It's just really solid, it looks great, and it'll last you forever. So check out the link in the description below, and when you decide to upgrade to the Ridge Wallet, make sure and use coupon code Jayvee at checkout for 10% off. Here's how the pitch for AC Rogue went. Just one dude in a room walked up and wrote this on a whiteboard. Black Flag on ice. Don't get me wrong, I love Black Flag. In case you didn't see my review, it's one of, if not my favorite AC games out there. So even if Rogue is just more of Black Flag, that's a great thing to me. Outside of Freedom Cry, it's the closest thing to a Black Flag sequel that we have. Being Black Flag's little cousin, it's not a bad thing. Especially when you can find this for 3 toonies and a loonie during a Ubisoft sale. Did you guys know Canada has coins they call toonies and loonies? A toonie is worth 2 Canadian and a loonie is worth 1. I'm serious, I'm dead serious. Really, I could spend this whole video repeating, this game is like Black Flag until my throat falls out of my mouth, but I don't want that to happen. So let's just say that, yeah, most things here are borrowed from Black Flag. And in 2021, that doesn't bother me one bit. Rogue is also known as that AC game where you get to play as a Templar. It's Assassins bad, Templars good. Now the turntables have turned. It's funny because this is one of the rare examples of an Assassin's Creed game where people don't identify it by the setting. No one says, oh yeah, Rogue, that's the one that's in the North Atlantic Hudson River Valley, right?
Wrong!
It's the Templar game. But I think it's a mistake to write off this setting because like every AC game, it's pretty good when you give it a chance. You've got cool little details like icebergs floating in the sea and ice sheets that you have to ram through. The environments reminded me a lot of Assassin's Creed 3, which I like a lot. Very, very few games in this series are more about the conflicts than the setting, and Rogue is one of those games. While it's mostly a Black Flag sequel since it came out after it and it uses the same framework and HUD and everything, it's also an AC3 sequel and prequel and a Unity prequel. I mean, it does so much to tie things together that if you play these games for the story at all, I don't know how you wouldn't get something out of this. You play as Shay Patrick Cormac, a promising young assassin who needs a little bit of guidance to become great. Sound familiar? The assassins find these precursor temples with pieces of Eden inside, but the older version of Adewale, which is so cool to see, discovers they cause earthquakes when you touch them. I guess nobody's seen Indiana Jones before? The younger version of Achilles, also really cool to see, sends Shay to the next temple location in Lisbon so they can get it before the Templars find it. And then this happens. My jaw dropped and stayed open for the entire time because this thing just keeps going for so long. It really reminds me of that Uncharted 2 scene, I think, where like the entire level falls apart. This is legit one of the coolest set pieces since the Ezio games. Shay is pissed because the assassins want to keep going after these sites despite, you know, the thousands of people that die every single time. They're less concerned about saving innocent lives and more worried about beating the Templars. So he steals the map and ends up getting shot and left for dead. This is the part of the game where Ubi flips the script to show you just how ruthless the assassins can be. And it kind of works. I mean, you could say it's a little bit too easy to hate Achilles here. I mean, thousands and thousands of people die because of his leadership. But I also feel like if Shay had a weaker motivation for leaving the assassins, it might not have been convincing when he does leave, you know? Would have been like, did you really need to do that? This decision makes sense. So I think it works here. Like every single AC game, Rogue has an awesome first few sequences. I mean, there's so much happening. It feels like this plot is moving at a breakneck speed. But since Rogue is so short, it just keeps on moving past the intro. Shay survives and wakes up in New York in the care of Templars, but he doesn't know that until he meets Colonel George Monroe. This is the part of the game where Ubi's like, all right, you saw an assassin who doesn't care about saving people. Now here's a Templar who does care. It's easy to like George Monroe because he's definitely the most patient and kind Templar the series has ever showed us, but because of the fact he feels a little too good to be true. He slowly grooms Shay in a way that feels calculated, but also kind of fair. He knows Shay is mostly just pissed at Achilles and wants to prevent more earthquakes. And Shay doesn't seem to care that they're Templars, not until Monroe shows him that they're not all bad. In exchange for cleaning up the city, Monroe helps Shay in his mission to stop the assassins. And that's enough for Shay. He gets his ship back, he gets to get some revenge by killing his former assassin buddies, and unfortunately, he inherits his first mate, Christopher Gist.
As your first mate, may I suggest our next destination?
Every single time Gist opens his mouth, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I just want to toss him into the Atlantic. For me, this is where the story hits a low point, but it bounces back right when one of the best characters in the entire series shows up. Of course, I'm talking about our boy Haytham f***ing Kenway. We get this awesome ceremony scene which mirrors the big Templar reveal in AC3. I just love this. Shay goes on an absolute killing spree, hunting down the rest of his old assassin friends in the name of revenge, and it all culminates with a race to the next temple in the Arctic. Haytham and Shay square off with Achilles and Shay's ex-best friend Liam, whose voice is disturbingly familiar because it's the same actor as none other than Germain from Unity. The assassins do end up realizing that these artifacts shouldn't be touched, but it's too late because Liam has an oopsie, like, oh my god, you idiot, and bumps into it, triggering another earthquake. Then we get another epic chase scene that ends with Liam's death. Just before Haytham can kill Achilles, Shay convinces him to spare his life, but only so he can spread the word about these temples to the other assassins. What's so great about this scene is the subtext here. We get to see how Haytham cripples Achilles and why Achilles hates him so much. This is the event that forces Achilles to become the man he is in AC3, the hermit who's lost all faith in the Brotherhood. But this decision is also technically Haytham's undoing, since we know Achilles lives on to train Connor, who ends up stopping Hatham, killing him, and ending the Templars' power in the American colonies. These moments are so interesting, and the payoff is huge if you care about the story. You also get this from the final scene in the game, which shows an older Shay in France. He spent the last 16 years hunting down a precursor box, and it led him to assassinate none other than Charles Dorian, Arno's dad. It's really cool to explore Versailles in Rogue because it has the exact same layout, but it looks like 10 times worse. You get to walk right past Arno and Elise. You get to take like the exact same path as you do in Unity. You get to hear the exact same lines that they say. It's just awesome. Then, of course, you see what they didn't show you in Unity, which is Shay walking up and assassinating Charles. This alone makes Rogue worth playing. I mean, I enjoyed my short time with the game outside of these story beats, but yeah, this is such a genuinely cool moment that if you've played Unity, I think you just have to see this too. I think the biggest question for AC Rogue is, does the whole Templar thing work, right? Is this convincing? It's meant to play on the moral ambiguity angle that we saw in Assassin's Creed 3, which is some of the most compelling narrative stuff we've gotten in this entire series. I love how it goes outside of the simple Assassin's good, Templars bad routine to remind us, yeah, that assassins are humans too. They can be evil. Achilles is very much the Al-Mualim of this era of the Brotherhood. He ends up being a selfish dick who twists the creed and hurts people. So yeah, I do think that this works. One thing I think you can say that could have been better is that Shay doesn't really feel like a Templar. It just feels like you're playing an assassin with a different bag of tricks. And you could say that these factions use similar methods, but I don't know, they could have done more to distinguish the gameplay side of Shay. But for the 7th game in the series to switch, flip the script and make you play as a Templar, I think this is just a welcome change. I also like Shay as a protagonist. I like hearing his voice, his accent, and I laughed every time he says,
"I make my own luck,"
because he says it so often, but I couldn't help but find it charming. He doesn't particularly stand out in the series, but then again, he doesn't get the opportunity to. He gets way less screen time, and so any character development that we might have seen is limited because this is a smaller game. But for the time we do get him, yeah, Shay's good. It's legitimately interesting to see how he navigates the conflict and ends up with the Templar Order. By the end, I feel like this game proves by connecting threads between Black Flag and AC3 that his story is definitely worth seeing. This game, I'm glad it was made. Like in all of these reviews, we're going to talk about modern day for a second, but there's not a whole lot to say. We're in Abstergo Entertainment again, and this time we're taking orders from the Templars, Violet da Costa and Otso Berg. Every few sequences, you get interrupted, you go out of the Animus, do a quick puzzle, and then you go back in. It's hard for me to get upset at this because I knew what to expect after Black Flag. But the one scene that stood out to me is at the end, when the Templars recruit you into the Order, or else. Berg pulls out a pistol, suggesting he'd put a bullet in your brain if you refuse, but you don't get to see the outcome. I mean, you've definitely seen too much for them to let you go, so if you said no, you're dead. But this is the kind of dark edginess that reminds you of how cutthroat the Templars really are, so I loved seeing that. Let's talk some more about gameplay. Knowing again that Rogue is Black Flag's little cousin, most systems look and feel exactly the same. For combat, Shay has the air rifle and grenade launcher, which are supposed to be new, but it's really just the blowpipe and some bombs. In fact, everything you'd label as new here is really new-ish. It's something you've seen before, but reused in a slightly different way. I'm not complaining, I'm just stating facts. My favorite new-ish thing is the assassins that hunt you down. When you hear whispers in the world, it means an assassin is hiding close by, and they're gonna pop out and try to kill you. It turns into this game of cat and mouse, and it's so fun to bait them out or shoot them out of their hiding spot. This, of course, is the same as the stalkers from Revelations, but it also uses the compass thing from multiplayer to track them down. Not everyone played that game, and fewer people ever played multiplayer. I spent a lot of time playing Brotherhood multiplayer, so this was a happy, nostalgic surprise for me. Combat, again, so similar that I feel like there's not much to talk about. It uses the counter kill system with some enemies that you need to break defense against, but most of the time, if I'm being honest, I just shot everyone. I did like having the rope dart for most of the game. It was nice because it was always a shame to get that so late in Black Flag that you never really got to use it. Of course, there's a ton of ship gameplay, and It's not a whole lot different, which means it's still really fun. Navigating the winds, targeting convoys, boarding ships. It's good, wholesome, family pirate fun. One small thing I appreciated was how icebergs work. You can ram into these to generate waves, which will sink the smaller ships. It's a cool little detail that surprised me. Sailing around in Rogue reaffirmed the magic that I felt in Black Flag. It's just fun to exist in an open world where you can hop on your own ship and then sail from island to island without loading screens and listening to sea shanties. Speaking of, the soundtrack in this game is great. It's very eerie and brooding, and it reminds me of the first game, but also lends so much to Shay's persona as the anti-hero, so I loved it. The stealth in this game is also pretty much intact. There are some weird bugs that'll get you detected when you shouldn't be, but for the most part, I appreciate the old school approach here. It feels less punishing and more about giving you the opportunity to hidden blade assassinate everyone. I knocked Black Flag for not focusing more on parkour, and yeah, I'll do the same for Rogue. It's nice to have the tree running from AC3, and it feels like they did a good job of letting you travel across cities mostly above ground, but it still feels stiff, and there were too many times I hit points where I was like, come on, Shay, just climb the damn wall. I still prefer this to the climbing system that we have now. It'll always be more fun to me to navigate a level with obstacles rather than just face rolling my keyboard to free run. So now that I've played AC Rogue in 2021, what's the legacy of this game? It reminds me actually a lot of Revelations. It's easy to poke fun at how short this is, but in 2021, that doesn't bother me. We're in an era where most of these games just don't give us many Assassin Templar storylines anymore, so Rogue feels like a refreshing reminder of the old days, no matter the runtime. I appreciated that. As someone who grew up with these games, I'm kind of mad at myself for not giving this a chance until now. It's definitely a relic of its time. It shows its age in a lot of ways, but the entire concept for this game is less about the era and more about the story that it sets out to tell. And it's a dark and serious tale of revenge. That's something I really like, and it had my attention pretty much the entire time. It doesn't have an exciting setting like ancient Greece, and Shay doesn't feel super unique to play as a Templar. But for me, that almost works to put the focus on the story first, and for that reason alone, I can't help but appreciate this game. Yeah, when I rank all of these games, it's probably going to be near the bottom, and that doesn't mean it's bad. It's definitely worth digging up those crusty old loonies out of your couch so you can dive into one of the most unique AC stories out there. The unfortunate truth is I doubt we ever see another game like this. It's that different. So, who knows what Assassin's Creed Infinity will actually be, but if Ubi isn't interested in giving us assassin stories anymore, I wouldn't put money on the fact that we're ever going to see another Templar one. Rogue is just a game that I think any AC fan needs to play. All right, guys, that is it for me. Thank you so much for the support on these AC in 2021 reviews. Really appreciate all the viewership, and yeah, you guys are always excited for these, so I'm excited to make them. I still owe you Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. Those are the last ones I haven't made reviews for, so I will definitely make those in the future. But yeah, it might be a bit. These take me a sec. I don't like to play them back to back, so appreciate your patience on that. But before my next AC in 2021 review, I want to do like a grand ranking of the games, because as I said, this is the last one that I hadn't played. And unfortunately, I'm not counting Liberation. I know you guys have told me play Liberation. I'm not going to count it, but I'm going to rank the rest of the main games in the series. Since I've definitely played them all now, I can rank them. So yeah, look out for that really soon on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. You can also click that bell to receive notifications when I upload. We passed 500,000 subs, 500,000. I wanted to do some kind of celebration, but I've had a lot of real life stuff going on, so I just haven't had the time for it. But thank you guys so much. Crazy milestone to be doing this for 11 years and cross that. So of course, thank you guys so much. Thank you again for watching, and I will talk to you next time.